Okay, everybody, welcome to Ending the Stigma, Path to Recovery. I am your host, Fredd Carroll, the amazing Fredd Carroll, you can call me. How's that sound, Scott? You like that?
You hesitated with your last name. I know you're having a great day and you got all that adrenaline from working on your car. I was starting to think maybe Bob and I'll fly over and we'll do an intervention just to make sure you're stabilized.
Well, before that, the other guy is author and life coach, Scott H. Silverman, up in the left-hand corner there, the elder gentleman of the group. And today we are going to speak with my friend, old friend, Bob ONOFRIO. So he's a man that I've known for several years, and I saw his really bad years, but I'm also happy to announce that he is now an adult addiction peer counselor in the state of Florida, and he's here to discuss his rise from the bottom. So how are you, Bob? How's everything going?
Good. Very good to see you again.
So that's Scott H. Silverman. I'm going to let you guys talk for a little while, and Scott's going to grill you with some questions because you guys got some in common threads, and I'm going to disappear for a few moments.
Okay. Have a good nap, Fred, and we'll see you in about 28 minutes, brother. So, Bob, why don't you, we've just been talking before we got started here. Sure. So there are probably many people, and our fan base is huge. There's about 7 people. And only 2 are on parole still, so they tune in whenever possible. So why don't you tell everybody who you are and what it is people really need to know about you, and whatever part of that question you want to let people know. The floor is all yours. You got 45 seconds. Go for it, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, my name is Bob ONOFRIO. I'm born and raised in just outside New Haven, Connecticut, a little town called Branford. Like most kids, kind of growing up, man. I was an only child. There's a lot of feelings of inadequacy and just feeling different as being raised by a single mom too. A lot of issues with that. And like most kids, I just was looking to fit in at a young age, and I would do or say anything you asked me to do or say just so you would accept me. And I struggled with acceptance for a good part of my life, even well into my 20s and 30s and even into my 40s. And it's one of the reasons I think my addiction kind of escalated was looking for acceptance and looking for people to accept me. I come from the town of Branford, so it's kind of like a middle upper class town, and it's kind of one of those towns where like everybody knew everybody, and I wanted to fit in with the popular kids, and I grew up in the 80s, so it was definitely a different time for those of us. I wasn't sure like if I wanted to hang around in the courtyard and smoke cigarettes and listen to heavy metal music, or if I wanted to be a jock, which I was on the high school wrestling team, wasn't extremely good at it, and just struggled. I remember bouncing from like groups to groups to wherever it would accept me. If the jocks didn't accept me and the punks didn't accept me, then I remember like I got into drama my senior year in high school, did the musical and all that, and just was looking for weird acceptance. And it caused me some problems. I as a teenager, I struggled. I ended up not kind of dropping out of high school my senior year, kind of bummed around for about a year, then got put away, got myself in some trouble. Went to a psych hospital because back in those days, there wasn't really like rehabs and so forth for teenagers. You didn't hear a lot about young kids getting clean and sober. In fact, I remember being 17 years old and getting thrown out of a 12-step meeting, like physically thrown out by the old timers, because they were like, kid, you don't belong here. You just need to stop being a knucklehead. I remember one old guy told me, and was fortunate enough that in the process of me going away to this kind of like these psych hospitals, one of the hospitals I went to was a place called Elmcrest Hospital. It was in Portland, Connecticut, and they had put me in a dual diagnosis house, and it was the very first one of its kind in the state, where you got treated for depression, anxiety, stuff like that, and then also for drugs and alcohol. And they would bring us to outside 12-step meetings, and that was the first time I ever experienced a 12-step meeting. Where I wasn't kicked out and thrown out. I kind of hung around in NA, Narcotics Anonymous, for a few years. And then by my mid-20s, I kind of ventured away from it because I wanted to become a pro wrestler. And I did that, got on the independent circuit for a while, did all right. Wasn't really dedicated to the business as I should have been. And obviously what I know now, was very fortunate enough in 98 to do some TV work, was on Monday Night Raw, did the Jerry Springer Show, Jenny Jones, Geraldo, did some acting work. And throughout most of 2000, I just kind of was struggling back in those days, and was working a lot on the independent wrestling circuits and stuff, drinking a lot, was taking a lot of pain pills back in those days, a lot of somas, which was really big for us. And then kind of flash forward to about 2010, a really good friend of mine, a business partner, I called him a business partner, but he was kind of my buddy. He had passed away real sudden, and it kind of took me in a different direction. I fell into a really deep depression. I was also working at that time in a 9-to-5 cubicle kind of job, and I was really miserable. So I used to like leave work at 5 and like bolt right to the bar. I ended a 5-year relationship also too. That was real hard. And then one day I just kind of stumbled into an old girlfriend of mine who introduced me to narcotics. And that's where my addiction kind of blasted off, as I say. It didn't take much. It was that one first line of coke that just sent me into an 8-year spiral. And I think Fred was kind of touching on it a little bit earlier. It was definitely it wasn't like a slow descent. It was like hit the pedal, 0 to 100 quick. And that one bump kind of took me into a massive 8-year usage that kind of brought me to getting fired, to joining a biker club, to getting thrown out of that biker club, to heroin, to crack cocaine, to ecstasies. And in 2017, I went to a rehab. I had an intervention kind of done on me. I was living in Connecticut. I was living down in community that Fred's familiar with, it's called Short Beach. I had a little beachfront kind of house I was renting, and within 24 hours after I had signed a lease on it, I turned it into a trap house. That's how quick it happened. I had a couch in that house. I remember I just got the keys from the realtor, and I had probably 10 or 12 people living in that house for about 2 months, coming and going. And the only requirement is that you had to pay me in drugs, and that was it. And you could stay there. And I went through hell, got sent to rehab, relapsed 24 hours after I got out of rehab because I wasn't ready to quit. Lost a ton of people over the years. I've buried so many friends, acquaintances, dealers, girlfriends. Even just today, I was just reading on social media about another kind of acquaintance that I had known in my partying days that had passed away, which now it's become more and more common, almost on a daily or weekly basis, of me hearing about someone passing away as a result of drug addiction. And then finally what happened to me is on December 9th of 2018, I woke up and I said, that's it, I'm done. I really was frustrated. I was fed up. I was about 100 pounds. I'd probably say close to, about maybe 80 to 90 pounds lighter than I am now. I had went through my entire bank account. I had gotten a large settlement in 2017 and from a bad car accident that I had been to. I remember it took me about 4 years. I got in that car accident in 2012. We didn't settle to 2017. 4 years. And it took me 4 years to settle that lawsuit. And it took me less than a year and a half to go through the entire amount. And we're talking a very low 6-figure settlement. Got so bad at the end that condo that I was renting in Short Beach, the power had gotten shut off. I was using by candlelight with my partner at that time, my girl that was living with me. We were robbing from stores to support her habit. Luckily, I never got arrested. she got pinched in a Target once and I left her behind, you know, because that's what you do in active addiction. Only to circle back, get her out of jail, bonded her out, and only to go right back as soon as I bonded her out to go right down into the projects in New Haven, you know, to support her habit. And it got so bad that at the end of the addiction, the landlord showed up with the Branford police, knocked on my door, told me I had to leave. And I went back to living in an abandoned house for 4 months. That was my family's. My family had left and moved to Florida. And my parents were trying to sell the house back home in Branford, and they couldn't. I broke into the house and was living there with no heat. I was eating at the soup kitchens, I remember. And then in December of that 2018, the last time I had reached out to social media, which is something I never wanted to do. My pride and ego definitely wouldn't let me do it, but I had no choice. I was very fortunate enough that a lot of people came to my aid. A lot of friends that Fred knew, people that had put gas in my car, that brought me food. Another really close friend of my family's and my brother's is the vice president of an oil company in Guilford. And he called me up and said, I have an oil truck coming to your house right now with 50 gallons of oil. We're going to put in the tank and we'll start the furnace for you. I stole a gas. I stole a propane tank from a grill from a neighbor, just so I can hook it into our gas line in the house so I can use our stove. And that's how bad it was. And then on December 9th, I finally said enough's enough. I had a friend that was living in Maine at the time that had just bought a house. She had said, hey, listen, why don't you just come up here? You know, I'll give you a month to get a job and to get your crap situated. And I threw everything in my car and I left that house and I moved up to Maine, where I was very fortunate enough to start my recovery in Maine. Worked in the treatment centers up there as I was staying clean. And then last year I had relocated down here to Florida, where I work in as a peer recovery support specialist for a large company based out of Houston, Texas, where I do peer support, where I work with young men and women now that are just coming out of treatment in their early 30, 60, 90, first year of sobriety, as you say, and we offer peer support to them. And peer support is basically just lived experience. I share a lot of my own personal journeys. I know, you know, exclusively what it's like in that first early stage of early recovery, the ups and downs that you could have, you know, and that's something that I do now. I try to give back a little bit while I'm still working on my own personal recovery. So, you know, I do.
So that's the basics of the beginning of everything.
Mhm.
And it gets through everything. Did you hear anything there, Scott, that reminded you of you at all? Did he?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but I thought what was interesting, Bob, is you were physically removed from an AA meeting and you were physically removed from a biker group. That is unusual. Not many people can make that kind of impression, and two different sets of completely different dynamics and environment. So tell us, you know, and that's a great story, and thanks for sharing that. I know that it's got to resonate with a lot of people. I know it did with me. So, you know, one of the things that Fred and I try to talk about is that, you know, removing the stigma. So what would your highest and best advice be to somebody who, because most of the people that I work with initially, you know, as a crisis coach and a family navigator, it's the family, you know, they call, you know, the person who's under the influence, you know, and I used to be an unlicensed pharmacist. So I always felt I was smarter than everybody else. And that's how I made my access and got a lot of my residual mood altering substances. But what would you tell family members who, you know, because I was the black sheep in my family. It sounds like you were honored probably with that label at some point as well. And in my family, you know, everybody seemed to do fine, get jobs, got settled down, got married. I mean, I did all that as well. but my journey, in my teens and 20s was similar to yours. I wasn't arrested, but my attitude was I never got caught. So, because I was out there and under the influence a lot and impaired. When you're impaired, you affect others, especially those who care about you. So what would you tell family members now that you're as a peer specialist, support specialist, you're talking to people in early recovery, and most of them are coming out of their cloud, or they're on a pink cloud, and the information they get early on is really important. And I'm a old school 12-step guy, but I also know that, as running a treatment center, I've learned that one size doesn't fit all. So what would you tell a family member who, someone might send this to and go, you got to hear Bob's story. So what would you tell a family member if they have a loved one who's on this run that's turned out to be nothing but horrible for them and for the family?
I get asked that question a lot. Scott, I'm not going to lie to you, and I do work with families, part of my job. And not only do I work with the people coming out, but I work in what they call the primary support. So I do work with the moms, the dads, the boyfriends, the girlfriends, where I offer support to them too. The ongoing kind of thing that I've always said is that just don't give up. Don't, I often think about my own journey, that if my family would have gave up on me, I don't know if I'd be here today. Fred has been very transparent where he saw my rapid decline. There were many times where I've had a lot of people, and Scott, I'm sure you can probably understand this from your own journey, where people were like, Bob, you're not going to make it. I remember many discussions that people had with me saying, like, we're going to bury you, and I remember that feeling of wanting to die. But my family didn't give up on me. My family was very supportive when I went into treatment. They supported me a lot. I did a lot of damage with them. I have really wrecked my relationship with my kid brother, which, thank God, I get emotional talking about it. Like, we just kind of what's the word I'm looking for? We're brothers again. Yeah, we're reconnecting. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I think reconciliation, I think, is what they call that when people kind of get together. Well, that's great, man. I mean,
we get along very good now. We laugh, we joke. We don't talk about anything that happened, but I can tell you stories. I remember the day I went to rehab, like him telling me, like, "Good, I hope you die," kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of anger, and as we know, hurt people. When people are hurt, they say hurtful things, and hurt people and stuff, but one of the biggest things I can tell you is just, you can't give up. You just can't,
I think, Bob, also people should realize that. So even as a friend of yours, and I saw you daily. I saw you every single day at your work, where I went and got coffee and stuff. And I would see where I saw it was different levels of happy Bob, sad Bob, the up and down, your weight gain, weight loss, because you've gotten very big, you've gotten very small, you've gotten really drastic changes within weeks of things. But the one thing you never did, and it's probably what saved you, you never stole from us. You never stole from your friends. You weren't stealing from us. So we never stopped caring. We didn't have to abandon you for our own safety. You were never a danger to us. You were only a danger to Bob.
Yeah. And that was probably, and that was, I'm not trying to justify anything. I know a lot of people's stories and their journeys and what they did to their own families. That's something I didn't have to do, but partially that's because, I was one of those few addicts where I always maintained a job. I always had a paycheck coming in. And then once that settlement I had gotten in February of 2017 came in, I didn't really need to work. I mean, I walked into that same job, Fred, in October of 2017 and threw off my shirt and quit. And I did it. I remember the day I quit. I quit because the girl that was living with me, we had drugs back at the house. We were up all night partying. I had locked everything up in a safe deposit box before I left for work that morning because I didn't want her to steal it. Gave her enough to get her by until I got out of work. And the whole time I was driving to work that day, I just knew at 5 o'clock in the morning, we had all this party paraphernalia, so to speak, you know? And it was more important for me to go back to the house to go party with her than it was for me to hold down a job. So I self-sabotaged me getting fired, you know, which I didn't get fired. I actually quit just so I can go back home and use. And then from October to 2017, I didn't work for almost a year and a half. I just lived off of that money I made, that I had. But, when you're running a $300-400 a day habit, so
when you hear that story, that when you talk and you share that story, do you see the insanity in that?
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, you sound like you've told the story a couple times, but when you think about that, that is insane thinking that, you get a job, you work in a job, and all of a sudden you think you've won the lottery, and what you probably had to go through those 4 years, let alone the harm that happened at the accident, becomes forgotten and behind you when you're doing drugs. And, there aren't many people, and I've known tens of thousands who have a situation like that, who actually get a chance to come out of it. So clearly, your higher power's got a job for you to do, and you're on your journey now and your path. And that's really inspirational. So tell us, when you first had a chance to understand that you suffered, and I'm going to use the word, you don't have to, from this disease of addiction, and you had a chance to get clean and sober, and now you're giving it back. And I'm sure they're paying you a fortune to do peer support, at a treatment center. And so what motivates you now?
I think the biggest thing is just, I just don't want to see anyone have to go through what I went through. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Obviously there's still a lot, like I'm not telling you, when you talk about the insanity, and I'm not sitting here trying to tell war stories, as but I remember that vicious cycle of 6-7 o'clock in the morning, going to cop, having enough to get us by till noontime, going back out at 1-2 o'clock to get the afternoon fix. Then by 6-7 o'clock, having to go back and do the night fix, having the dope man come to your house, 3-4 trips a day, I was easily going through ridiculous amount of money in that vicious cycle of going over again. And then, as Fred talked about it, the come down was always the worst for me, especially with the drugs that I did, being, cocaine and crack and stuff like that. Just the depression is brutal.
You were a moody man.
Yeah.
A very moody man. I never knew what I was going to get going in. I always knew you were my friend, and I knew I wasn't in danger, but I didn't know if I was going to get good morning or go to hell. You just didn't know. And some days you weren't even able to talk. Some days we couldn't talk to you, but at no time did you ever come to us directly until that post on social media. And that's what all of these things are just who you are as a proud person, too proud to ask for help. But that's part of our job here on Ending the Stigma, is trying to teach people that it's okay to ask for help, so they don't end up in your cycle for too long.
And that's the biggest thing. I've often when people ask me about this, and just recently, I posted, I had gotten, I passed the state board exam, and I posted a copy of my certificate. I wasn't doing it to brag. I was doing it to show people that are still actively out there. I have close to, I have a very large social media following, whether it's through my wrestling background or just people I know, but I still have a lot of active people in my social media circles. I know they're still using. And I was presently shocked that as soon as I had posted it, the number of people that were inboxing me saying, "Hey man, how do I get clean? Hey man, how do I do peer support?" And, a lot of it does come from asking for help. I was really too proud to ever ask for help. And I did it, I remember when I did it in 2017, it was 4 years ago to this very day that I was actually in treatment here in Florida. I remember I left for Florida on November 6th of 2017, got out on December 8th, relapsed on December 9th, 10th, That's how quick too the progression had happened. I mean, I wasn't even out of treatment for 24 hours and I had already relapsed.
That's by the way, that's a very common outcome, unfortunately, for people that leave treatment in a safe, secure, protected, structured environment. And according to science, 95% of the people that leave a treatment center without going directly into the next phase of support, that is something. 95%, Bob. That's the statistic from the industry, which means it's data that's pretty real time, and it doesn't matter what program you went through or how long you were there. It's when you leave, if you're unable to transition and move those tools into something, what happens is your body, mind, and soul says, hey, look how well you just did. You deserve an award or a reward.
Well, here's the funny thing, Scott. So when I had left treatment on that Wednesday, I was still living back home in Connecticut. I had still some money from the settlement. I still had a lot of it left over. My thinking was, hey, I'm going to go treat myself and I'm going to go to Disney World. That was my big thing. I remember telling everybody the day I graduated from treatment, I'm going to go to Disney World. My parents, my mother and my aunt had drove down from where I currently live, which is about an hour and a half away, picked me up at Orlando International Airport where I got dropped off and brought me to a hotel in Kissimmee, Florida. And I remember the night I was going to talk about the pink cloud. I'm going to be Mr. Recovery. Called the 12-step hotline, found a meeting, took an Uber to that meeting. That Thursday morning, I woke up, went to Disney. I came back that Thursday night. And as I was walking back to my room, there was a young lady outside having a cigarette. And I automatically knew what she was about. She said a couple of things to me. I said a couple of things to her. 5 minutes later, I had relapsed with her. That's how quick it happened, and then proceeded to lock myself in a Florida hotel room for 2 days after that, until I had to fly myself home on a Sunday in the middle of a blizzard. I remember landing at Tweed New Haven Airport at like 3:00 in the morning. As soon as I got home, I made a few phone calls. The ex-girlfriend showed up, and that was 5, 6 o'clock. And there we were up for 3 days again. And that was the stuff, it was hard, it's not something I'm ever proud of. I don't say things to brag about my addiction. I say things so people can understand what it was I went through. Again, I had not had a long 20, 30-year battle with narcotics. I didn't pick up narcotics till 12 years ago. I'm 52 now. I picked it up late in life. It was just, I was at a situation where I hated my life back then. And as hard as it for me to say, or hard of it as for you guys to hear it, I was too much of a coward to end my life. As much as I wanted to die, I couldn't do it.
I also think your natural ability to be an actor, whether it's in the wrestling world, the Jerry Springer show, the Jenny Jones show, all that stuff, even the wedding thing you did, Tony and Maria's wedding, your whole life was built around that. You continued to act in real life. Right. You pretended everything was okay. You told us you were fine because you were too proud, too tough, all those things that come with being an 80s child. Men don't ask for help. Men don't need help. And you're a hard-headed guy. You weren't going to listen to us. You weren't going to change until Bob was ready to change, and nobody could tell you any different.
And I agree with you, Fred. And so many people did, that had came forward and were telling me, hey, dude, you're ruining your life. What are you doing? And I was always like, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm fine those are the two words that are the most deadly words in the world. Like, I'm okay. I'm fine, because we all say that and we know we're really not, like I knew every time I told you or I told anybody in our circle back home, I'm okay. I knew I wasn't. Everybody knew I wasn't, they saw the weight loss. They saw the thing. I mean, I was arrested 3 times in those 8 years of my addiction. And I prided myself like you, Scott. I was a good kid. I never got arrested. I never did anything. and the most major of it was a DUI in 2016. Luckily I never hurt anybody, or I didn't hurt myself. But
well, unfortunately, Bob,
Mm.
I can't share any of the comments that are coming across on the Facebook, but they're all people connected to you in your life. So make sure after the show, you go onto the Facebook page on mine and read
I
them
will.
and
I
stuff.
will.
But it's from Ed, our good friend Ed, who you worked with for a long time, and from Stephanie and stuff. So people that in our circle are commenting. So I think you'll appreciate what they're
Well, I
saying.
appreciate everyone's kind words. I mean, I'm getting emotional just kind of thinking about stuff, man, because it's like, those of us that are caught up in addiction, you don't realize at the time what you're doing to people. Like I never realized like all the hurt that I was causing, not only my friends, but my family. I just never knew. I never noticed it. The hardest thing for me too was in 2012, I had went back to 12 steps. And from 2012 to 2018, I was going to meetings regularly, but I was going messed up. Constant newcomer stuff, white keychains, 20, 30, 40 of them. I was getting on a revolving basis. It seemed like every week I was getting up and saying I had relapsed. Thank God the people in 12 steps didn't throw me out of their meetings. They never said, hey, dude, you can't come back here. You can't be clean. If anything, they loved me, and they kept the complete opposite of it, where they kept telling me, hey man, like don't give up. They were like, just keep coming, keep doing you and stuff like that. It was those people that didn't give up. It was those friends that reached out to me in December. I have a really good old high school friend of mine. Her name is Trish. I've known her since we were kids. Countless times in my active addiction, this girl helped me out so much. And it was pretty amazing, like she just never gave up on me, and helped me financially when I needed it, fed me. My friend Ronnie, that Fred knows, Ronnie was one of the few guys that did pull me off to the side at one point. He's an old friend of mine and friend of Fred's. I was a very, very unbelievable heavy metal guitarist. Ronnie had pulled me off to the side many a times and was like, dude, I'm not going to bury you, bro. Like, I don't need to explain this one to people, like why Bob ONOFRIO or Bulldog, as people know me, is not here anymore. My buddy Ed, that Fred knew real well, I had a big falling out with him because of my drug addiction, and he got me a job. I had let people down, and it was that constant thing of letting people down all the time. Like I just got tired of it, and of course the biggest thing was I letting myself down more than anything, and hated everything about it, but I mean, the thing was, is I was able to pull myself out of it, and listen, man, I crawled back into the rooms of 12 steps on December 9th of 2018, literally physically crawled, and there were people that didn't think I could get clean, man. There were people that were sure I was going to relapse again. I know I had my doubters. And it's sad that I did. But hopefully, people see the good that I do now. I am, listen, I'm not trying to convince anybody of this. I know I'm not the person I was 3 years ago. I know where my head's at now. I'm not going to say I don't have bad days. I do, but my first thought isn't like, oh, I want to go get high. My first thought is, okay, I need to let someone know what's going on with me. And Fred, where you were talking about that pride and that ego shit that a lot of us hide behind, not only just men, but women too, man. Like I know a lot of women who struggle with the ego stuff that I do, because I will hide behind the fact that, hey man, I'm an ex-wrestler. Hey man, I was this, I'm bulldog, I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not going to tell people I'm hurting. God forbid I cry in front of Scott and Fred, because I'm a human being and I have human emotions, I'm not afraid to cry now if I have to. And Fred, Scott, we were joking earlier. You're like, did I cry when I saw you TED Talk? And I'm like, I don't cry. It's one of the things I have struggled with, is that I don't cry anymore.
You'll get there. There's a thing I call the Fluff muffin syndrome, and I can see that we'll have a seat at the table for you, and maybe you'll be one of our poster children for it. It takes time. Look, Fred and I have a special sign off, and you'll hear it today from Fred. We've been working on it. It took him 6 months to get to it, and he's still not comfortable with it. It doesn't matter. It looks like he is. Sometimes you got to work on the inside job while you're showing people the outside. It's kind of like being honest with people and then getting their feedback, whether you solicit or not. And to me, look, science says, Bob, whether you like it or not, it takes almost 5 years, to get your marbles back, and then up to 10 years of recovery before you learn how to use them again. So, that is true, because we end up, we're slowly killing ourselves while we're, putting mood altering substances into our allergic bodies. And the longer you do that, and what I've seen, and probably more, that's kind of interesting as an asset when I work with people who've come out of jail or prison for long terms of being away, is they've developed these survival skills. I mean, we have these survival skills that a lot of people just don't have. Because think about it, you could have died almost any day for how long? And for some reason you didn't. And I said it earlier, there one size doesn't fit all. And, one of the things that I've learned in anonymous programs is when I see people go out, and this COVID thing is really, I've been going to a home group now for over 28 years. And I have seen more people in the last year that I've known for, some of them decades, have gone out because of the isolation and because of the lack of contact. And, maybe in the back of their mind they had, but so for me, when I see somebody come back in and share, and I know a lot of chronic relapsers because of what I do, I get calls a lot. I look at it, hey, thanks for going out. Let me know that you experimented. It didn't work. I appreciate it, because you're right. I don't care who you are. You have bad days, you have situations, and you learn over long periods of time that you can manage them differently. I mean, I'm 67 now, and you just, literally 6 months ago, I had this temper tantrum that I couldn't understand where it came from. And I had a situation 3 weeks ago. I was so upset about something that should have happened the way it did. It wasn't that big of a deal, but the way I took it.
Is this the food at a wedding? Is this the?
No, it wasn't the food at a wedding. No, that was a different situation. But this was something I was expecting. It was supposed to happen, and then it didn't. And I got really upset about it. And I couldn't believe how hard I felt emotionally. So, I got on the phone, called my sponsor. My sponsor did what everyone said. And I go to my home group 4 days a week on Zoom. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now because of, the quarantine. So I get it. And the good news is, the longer I'm here, the less I know, and I'm able to humble myself. And when you talk about your benchmarks, I don't see them. I see them as torches of light, and I see them as inspirations and platforms for people to seek and know that, hey, it can be done. There is hope and help. And if you're willing to do what it takes, and you're willing to take suggestions, you can move the needle, and you can get on the road to recovery, and you can stay there. Fred?
Yeah, exactly. And listen, that's going to be it for the show too. That's it. This is it. But I'm glad that this is the second time I've interviewed Bob on a podcast and stuff. The last time was a little more, it went into these depths and stuff, but it also sounded like he was calling us from the jet engine of an airplane. So there was a little difficulty with the sound quality, but I'm glad that you're where you are today.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you found some substance in you to become a peer counselor, the adult peer counselor. What's the difference? Answer me this if you can quickly. Why the word adult before? Why can't you just be a peer counselor?
There is no adult. You added the adult.
Did
but
I?
That's not there's yeah. So my official title in the letters is I'm a peer recovery support specialist. I'm a PRSS, and I have a certification as a certified recovery peer specialist. So I'm a licensed CRPS in the state of Florida. I am actually working as we speak now. I will be taking the national certification test, hopefully by Christmas, where once I get my national certification, I'll be licensed in all 50 states to practice peer support. And then after that, I will be going back to college to become an LADC.
I do want to say I'm looking at the Facebook post right now. It says certified recovery peer specialist adult.
Okay. I don't know why it says adult, because I work with all ages. That's something new. I apologize. I actually, you know what?
It's probably a licensure thing in your state.
Yeah, it's probably just a license
the right way.
Actually, as you're saying it, Fred, I'm opening up my certificate because I haven't hung it up on the wall yet, just so I can read it.
It says adult. That's why I saw it and I said, "What's that?"
Oh yeah, certified recovery peer specialist adult. Okay, and okay, so now you know what? Now it's dawned on me. There is a particular license that you can get for working with adolescents. I think just exclusively for adolescents.
It's a different pop. There's no doubt about it.
Right. So the company I work for and what I do is I work mainly with 18-year-olds and up. We do have adolescents with my company. We do have certain people that are specialized to work with them, you know, and so forth. I have chosen, and I was given the opportunity to want to work with adolescents. I decided at this point in my life, I would rather just work with the 18 and over crowd.
I think
right
you
now,
relate. You probably relate better to it anyway. But.
Well, I find that majority of my the people that I help are more within that 30 to 50-year-old range that I deal with.
Makes sense.
They understand it a little bit more. But here's the thing too, is that, and not to kind of go off track, but the adolescents, and I'm sure Scott probably knows this a lot, there is the 13 to 18-year-old demographic has grown in 12 steps. There is a large amount of 13 to 18-year-olds now that are coming into 12 steps. There are, it's not uncommon to see, to go into a treatment center and to see teenagers in there getting clean. It's a hard reality that this is what America is dealing with now. With the opioid epidemic, you're seeing more and more younger people doing it.
Right. But from the positive side of that, those kids were always there. They were always there, addicted to something. Now they're getting help. So that could be a positive turn to this.
There's some great teenagers, if I have to use that word, that are out there spreading the message and saying, hey, I'm 17 and you can get clean, so but there's definitely and we can talk for hours about this. There's definitely a lot of issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's exactly why we have a show for it.
Right.
Scott and I come on unscripted every week, and we could talk for an hour every week, every day, 365 days a year, and talk about the same thing with different stories, because sadly it's not ending. So I want to thank you for joining us, Bob.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so this is Ending the Stigma, Path to Recovery. I want to tell everybody that we have switched over to the Zoom platform, which is a stronger, in my eyes, it's a stronger quality program to use. Unfortunately, it doesn't let me go live in all the forums I was able to go for, but we also have a phone system coming in finally, Scott, a new phone system.
Don't threaten us, Fred. I'm waiting to see it.
Let's wait until I can figure it out and work it in.
I can't wait.
But it's going to have a number. We're eventually going to get where we need to be. And we think live call-in gives a new ability to this, to let the addict or the addict's family or the mental health questions, people to call and just talk and tell their story and let two people listen to them without judgment. We might help guide you in one direction or the other, but we're not certified in those medical fields to give you complete direction, but we have experience enough to where we can at least put the effort in to help you. So Scott, I know you like to give your phone number out. So if you want to do that, you can right now.
Sure, I do. Absolutely. Everyone, 619-993-2738. 619-993-2738. Please call or text me anytime.
Okay. Scott likes to do that because, as he says, He would much rather spend an hour with you on the phone than an hour with you at your funeral. And he gets back to you as fast as he can when he gets the message, and he's honest, and he'll give you the truth. So what I want to say, because Scott likes to see me do the sign off, and the sign off from Ending the Stigma, here he is staring at me, is if somebody hasn't told you they love you today, we love you. And that's it from Ending the Stigma. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.